Bandwidth provided by Recursive Squirrel Interactive. Transcription services provided by transcribeme.com. Visit them on the web at transcribeme.com/BeanCast for up to 25% off. That's transcribeme.com. Episode 506. And I Ran. For Monday, July 30th, 2018, it's time for this week's edition of the BeanCast, a weekly discussion about the news and issues facing marketers today. I'm your host, Bob North. Thanks for joining us. Once again, we're asking whether production houses offer the new agency model. Only this time the money is backing the theory up. Now traditional agencies face pressure from both above and below the line. How should they respond? We'll discuss. Also, why Google seems immune to Facebook's woes. Whether more digital is the answer to retail experience planning. Why we hate reward ads. Plus this week's Ad Fail 5. That's the lineup. Let's meet tonight's panel. Thanks for joining us for this week's BeanCast. I'm Bob Norp, and with me on the panel for this evening, we start with the super advisor at the Innovation Scout, author, speaker, and longtime BeanCaster, Mr. Joseph Jaffe. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Bob. How are you?
Fantastic. It's always great to have you on the program. You've been coming on since like year 2, I think. It's been a long road.
And I will continue to keep coming on until the listening audience sends me off the island.
Now, also with us, we're excited to welcome back Senior Consultant at Management and Marketing Consultancy X-Plane, Ms. Holly Noto. Holly, hi.
Hey, Bob. Hi. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And finally, we're pleased to have the President and Chief Creative Officer at Allscope and Board Member at Mashburn Enterprises, Mr. Jonathan Sackett. Jonathan, welcome.
You guys will be happy to know that I am not at a Flock of Seagulls concert tonight just to be on this show, and I'm not kidding.
I don't know whether or not to be impressed by that or not.
The sacrifices I make for you people, I don't know.
I just need to know what your hair looks like right now.
Hey, well, I was all set to go, so I think you know what it looks like right now.
Excellent. Post pictures later.
Well, moving on to the topics. Look, if we learned one thing from the recent unpleasantness between Sir Martin and WPP over the acquisition of Media Monks, it's that production houses are pretty hot. In fact, they're such a hot commodity that big players like WPP and Sir Martin's new entity seem to be really interested in spending millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Clients are looking to disintermediate their agency relationships, and the production houses are stepping into the gap everywhere. Joe, we've discussed this trend before on the show, but do the recent events highlight an uptick, and how should agencies respond?
So I was trying to think of which angle I wanted to take with this topic, and I think the first thing that I was thinking of is production seems to be kind of the last bastion, or maybe the next bastion, to fall in terms of the agency model being questioned and ultimately disintermediated. Certainly most of the conversation has taken place around the media business, the unbundling of media, media scrutinization, and certainly, now when we look at programmatic and we look at buying, et cetera, and then of course digitization as well. And so you put all of those things together. We've always taken aim at the $4 or $5 million Super Bowl spot, or as I call it, the stupid bowl spot. But the reality is no one ever spoke about the $1.5, $2 million being spent on production and how much of that was going to the agency. And of course, this happening at the same time as Doritos was crashing the Super Bowl, getting consumers to create those spots essentially for free. And so I was thinking about that, that's the macro trend in terms of recognizing today more often than not, or more so than ever before, the creators, the makers, the influencers, the advocates. There are just the freelancers, the disgruntled creatives that are actually out there moonlighting as well.
Can I disagree with you just for a little bit right away? Because I think that when
I haven't even made my point yet, and you're disagreeing with me.
Well, but I mean, it's just like we're talking about the fact that the production houses are a real valuable asset for the clients, but I don't think that that's the actual trend. I think the bigger trend is that the value of consultancy and the value of creative opportunity is no longer as valuable to the clients, and that the clients can bring all that in-house and have a closer connection to the production. And that's the valuable commodity, that the production houses can be collaborative with the client in a much more intentional way. They can create the spots from soup to nuts, and they can deliver the production, and they can do it in a much more efficient way that gives the client more control. And I think the ultimate trend is that the clients want more control. Am I not wrong?
Well, listen, I don't think you're actually disagreeing with me. I think you're on a parallel path in the sense that, and by the way, I don't mind if somebody ever disagrees. You disagree with me all the time. But the fact is,
Joe, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I disagree with that. But the other part of it is that in reading some of the source articles, a lot of this is happening because the likes of P&G and so on and so forth are just cutting their budgets, which again is this continuous vicious circle or vicious cycle. And so what's to do when all this opacity and fat built into this and built into the model is suddenly up for grabs? So yes, you're right, Bob. Control is important, but this is unfortunately or fortunately going to come down to one thing and one thing only, and that's money, and that's bottom line, and cutting costs, because it's the only way to preserve some semblance of growth in the entire marketing ecosystem. So you've got that, and then you've got this. I mean, the whole idea of bringing it in-house or outsourcing, etc., that's a bit of a smokescreen. At the end of the day, I think part of this is recognizing that there are a variety of new and exciting sources and resources to be able to emulate and even improve on the creative product. And until the agencies can come to the table with something that is comparable, better, cheaper, and or faster, they're going to continue to struggle to justify those production dollars.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you in spirit that the clients are looking to potentially consolidate this whole media mix into the puzzle. I mean, I think we're not that far apart on this, but I'm looking at whether or not this is the time for production houses to really rise to the top, or agencies in trouble. And that's the core of my questioning. And Jonathan, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, is the agency as we know it in trouble as a result of production houses, and how should they respond to this?
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for a long time, and it's also been a long time coming. So, because I mean, let's face it, I've worked for all the biggest holding companies. Okay, so it's been a constant challenge. Do you white label your production partners? Because let's face it, to start an advertising agency, all you need is a computer. Okay, and what historically the big agencies, I've been at Ogilvy, I've been at DDB, I've been at Martin, I've been at Arnold. And what you do is you sell them a staffing plan, and then you outsource all the work. So what is the client really getting for what they're paying for? That's the question. I got to tell you, if I was a production house right now, you know what I would do? I would hire a couple of heavy hitting guns, so you got their names with your brand, and I would go after and take all the business away from the big agencies. They're in trouble and they're hurting, and they're all cutting back because the clients are cutting back because it's a perfect storm.
All the agencies, though, have built their own big production houses or are trying to buy them. I mean, that's why Media Monks was such a valuable asset for WPP, and why Sir Martin wanted it so badly. I mean, it was a larger foothold into that particular world. I mean, and WPP has been pretty straightforward about their intent in this place. But, it's just like you've got VML already under the WPP banner, and VML is kicking ass. I mean, they're doing
Right.
incredible things.
Yeah, and what the part of the problem, and I've always said this, is at that level of these agencies, it's a lot of it is run by ego. And what happens for some reason, as soon as they bring in a production house, the agencies, so it's part of the agency family, whether it's Interpublic, Omnicom, WPP, what happens is because of ego, they don't want to work with them because suddenly now that you're part of us, you're not as good because you got to be you're going to be a better production house if we have to stare across the street at you. So that's the challenge that they have. As soon as they bring one into the family, the amount of work that they're giving to them gets cut back. So yes, they're getting more volume, but they're getting less work on a per agency basis. It's a weird ego thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird culture shift within the agency model. And the more interesting thing that really rises up from this conversation, Holly, is the fact that the agencies are now experiencing pressure from both sides, both above and below the line. You've got above the line pressure coming from management consultancies, and you've got below the line pressure coming from production houses. And, the agencies themselves, the traditional agency model needs to decide what do they do. And quite frankly, I don't even begin to know where they should be. Should they be playing closer to the management consultancy realm and amping up the consultancy features within the agency? Or should they be looking to become more production focused? Or should they just block and tackle and be exactly who they are right now as a vendor of creative?
That is the question. I think that's the important one to answer. I know in our experience, we play right in that sweet spot of management consultancy. We have tons of great advice and strategy to offer. And then we also have our own production facility. And so we sit in this weird area where we're not necessarily an agency at all. And we've found more and more that that's getting our foot in the door. That's getting us to a place where we are a lower price point. And one of the things I think that's pushing that for us is the in-house marketing and advertising teams. And I know we've talked about this on a previous call. When you have an in-house marketing team, you have teams of people that are sometimes 30 to 50 large, and they are already spending a lot of their dollars on marketing, on employment, on employing people to do that work in-house. So when it comes down to the production side, it comes down to the consultancy side, offering good advice, offering good direction and creativity. That's where we end up getting a lot of play. And I'm wondering if that's where a lot of these agencies really need to start thinking, which is, how do we create opportunity given what we see trending in most large businesses and logos?
Joe, tell me what you think about that. I mean, it's just like, tell me how you believe, because one of the, while I don't disagree with Holly overall, I mean, I think that agencies do need to be in that sweet spot, and they do need to be creating a deeper relationship of consultancy while still providing these production opportunities. I still see the fact that management consultancies are able to have that relationship, but agencies are continually offering strategy and planning, which clients don't want to pay for. And it seems like that shift from, okay, we're also a management consultancy, that doesn't seem to be on the table for the agency world.
Well, I think, if we go back maybe 25, 30 years and actually look at the creative or the production process, so much of it was visibly and transparently outsourced, from pre-pro to post-production, to the fact that, so many parts of the production process were absolutely built, into the model as partnering with external sources. And I think there's no question that this conversation is happening. Like, why now? Why right now? And the digitization of everything has created more complexity for sure, but also more possibilities. And so I guess what I'm really thinking is that for the first time, maybe production isn't just the execution arm, but actually can inform the entire process. If you actually work backwards, if you know what's possible, and if you're able to be able to create versions and functionality and interactivity and experiences that weren't possible before, that almost informs the idea itself and actually, the journey to that point. And so in a way, you're talking about these agencies being squeezed out from the top down and the bottom up, but it's actually all connected, and that's why this is such a fascinating, I think, topic, because of the realms of what is possible. I mean, you can't have this conversation without having I think, a conversation about content and content strategy and all the various forms of enacting and implementing an advanced and a strategic content strategy. Because when you do, suddenly, as I said, production isn't just the tactical execution arm, but is a kind of mission critical part of the whole process.
But
Well, Jeffy, hold on one second though. Jeffy, he brings up that's a mouthful. There's a couple of things that I wanted to address there. Number one, you're absolutely right that oftentimes we work backwards from something as simple as an effect. Okay, years ago we did Cars.com, and if you remember those commercials with the guy with two heads, and one head was happy and one was sad, whatever. But the idea, the execution, and the idea itself came from something as simple as an effect like that. So the production companies can come up with those things. But the other bigger thing that you kind of touched on is this: the holding companies are predominantly the ones buying out the production. So the holding company will buy out a production company because the agencies can't afford to themselves, right? So what you've got is a perfect storm of a family under Interpublic, under Omnicom, where the production is now part of that family, but the agencies have to try to justify their existence because they've already built their train tracks. And it's hard to, what are you going to do? Fire everybody and start over? You can't do that. You got to justify your existence.
Are we getting, though, to the heart of the problem that agencies face, which is that they're considered by many of their clients to be nothing more than vendors? And does really doubling down on production make us more a vendor to our client than ever before, which essentially takes away all the opportunity to have a meaningful marketing conversation, a meaningful relationship with the C-suite that helps them to understand that marketing is about the entire operational, structure of a company and how we touch our consumers. It's just like we're not able to do that. We're vendors of ads. And by doubling down on production houses, aren't we just saying to the vendors, yes, we're saying to the clients, yes, we're vendors, let procurement have their way with us? Well,
yeah, vendor, the word vendor and the word agency are both four-letter words. Right. I mean, figuratively, of course. I can spell, by the way, guys. But in case anybody was questioning that, but you're absolutely right, Bob, because you got to remember with technology and replication of technology, everything is getting commoditized. We've got robots doing surgery. We've got LegalZoom pushing attorneys' prices down, and advertising agencies are struggling just to make their existence known because they're treated as a vendor and because the word agency means ad. So you're absolutely right.
Holly, what's your thoughts?
I was going to jump on that. I have to agree with both of you and just sort of add to the thinking. I think the consulting side really hits heavily on the content, on the strategy. And I think that's really it. You can't automate, you can't AI your way through the creativity or the analytics in the sense of being able to offer really good advice and being able to use your experience. There's nothing that will replace that creativity that I see our teams putting out there, that I see so many teams putting out there that are more integrated. So I would double down on what Jonathan said, and I would also double down on what Joe said around content. You can't. I know everybody's getting into a situation where the channels are more distributed, you're more digitized, and I think being able to think ahead of that and being able to offer a really good strategy is going to be key. And then you're less of a commodity, even if you do have production in-house, or even if you are sort of an end-to-end sort of provider. It's not a dirty word to say not only can we, make a really slick looking ad, but we can tell you exactly which words to say and the way to say it and the audiences to reach and how you're going to reach them. I think the more end to end we are and comprehensive, maybe the better off we'll be and less commoditized.
I've just made a really big decision over here. I really like her.
There's a reason that Holly's on the show.
Somebody finally agrees with me. I'm in.
I'm gonna split and then double down on both of those hands.
Okay.
How are you going to do that? I want to hear. This is going to be linguistic magic.
I'm not very good with betting.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's one company that's really good on betting. It seems to be Google. If you had to bet on one company, you'd have to say that Google is doing a pretty good job. And in a week where Facebook saw 27% drop in its valuation over investor fear about its ongoing viability as an ad platform, Google marched on to new highs. Arguably, they each have their fair share of trust issues over data. I think that you can make many cases that Google has many of the liabilities that Facebook has. So, Jonathan, why does Google seem to remain so immune to investor worries overall?
That is a great question, Bob.
Okay, well, answer it.
No, I've got an opinion on this. Okay, so I'm sorry. I apologize. I bring this up quite often with you, Bob. I know that, and I'm sure that your listeners will know that too. But I'm going to bring it up again.
What, that you were a hip hop star? Yeah, we know that. Go ahead.
You know, I was a famous rapper under Prince, right? We all know
Yes,
this.
I
Okay.
know that.
So but here's what I was going to bring up, and thank you for bringing that up, Bob.
You're welcome.
Okay, so years ago when Google was launching Gmail, a reporter called me and had asked me about this, and they said, hey, Google said they're going to read these people's emails, anybody who signs up for a Gmail account, so they can make a better ad serving tool. And they said, do you think that'll affect people signing up for Gmail? And I said, absolutely not. And it should, but it won't, because of sniffer technologies, because of actual vernacular and reading people's emails and serving up things like that. It's going to happen. I get it. And that's the way things work. But I'll tell you something. Because Google has not only they own search, but they've also bought up other companies, as we know. And Google, the word itself has become synonymous with search, right? It's like Kleenex, right? It's become inherent in our vernacular that you Google something. It's become a verb as well. And I believe my thought on this is this, that Facebook was built on a social platform. So as soon as everybody gets all their underwear gets all in a bunch because Facebook they're selling our data. Well, you know what? You signed up for a free account. Where do you think their business plan is? They got to sell something. I mean, it's not just out there on the, how many servers historically Facebook has taken up. So what happens is, because Google is utility and function and not form, and it's known as that, if they read into our words, they read into our vernacular, they read into our tonality, they read into hot spots for search, if they do all those things, they're automatically forgiven because they're providing such a useful utility, whereas Facebook is viewed more as a social platform where you can look up your high school friends. So that people take that as more personal than reading your Gmail account. That's
it's interesting you bring that up, because my head's in the same place, and I want to get Holly in on this conversation at this point, because I'm looking at the way that I share on Facebook as opposed to the information I share on Google, and there is no functional difference between the type of data that I offer. I mean, Google has access to the same amount of information about me that Facebook has, but I'm more connected to Facebook's data. I'm sharing pictures, and it's just like I'm sharing intimate thoughts and events with friends.
It seems more personal.
It seems it's like there's this direct connection with the data, and it's just fascinating to me that I have that same level of connection with Google, and yet I just don't care.
Well, that's the problem. It's your perception is the problem, right? And I can't agree more with Jonathan. You're going to love me by the time we're done with this call if you keep speaking first. Here's why.
Hey, you know what?
Late.
You know what?
Too
Jonathan
late.
always will speak first.
Here's why. Your perception of Google taking your data, whether it's through Gmail or search engine or whatever you're doing, is that the data is not talking back to you. No one's programming a response back to you. Like, that's what we were all afraid of on Facebook is, oh my God, the Russians are talking to us through Facebook. And the problem is that we're wrong about that, because Google is talking back to us by the way they prioritize the responses to your searches, by the way you see different information coming up, to even the way that they're now programming the AI within the web your email window. Have you noticed that when you start to type at Gmail now, it's upgraded and it says, "Can I anticipate what you're about to say?" And it has been reading my email for so long that it was right yesterday about 4 out of 5 times in finishing my sentences for me. So I think it's a perception issue. We perceive that Gmail and Google aren't talking back to us or trying to manipulate us when in fact they are.
Here's my question though. Can Google stay immune as they have so far? Is it possible, Joe, for Google to remain in this sweet spot of being a utility as opposed to this personal connection of a platform? Or is Google just playing on borrowed time and will eventually have to pay the piper for all the information that they're kind of mining on us and using on us?
I mean, look, history has taught us that every single company rises and every single company falls and fails eventually. And you could look at Facebook, for example, and have said, well, that's never going to happen with Facebook. They have how many? 2 billion or something like that? A billion? I don't know, a lot of people that have subscribed to the platform. But at the end of the day, you know, as quickly as they rose and everybody shared and overshared and didn't care about who was kind of, manipulating their data, something else comes along and people get bored. The reality is, and I would say this to answer your question, Facebook is Google a media company? Is Facebook a technology company? I think Facebook is a media company and therefore held accountable and held under the same scrutiny and pressure as any other media company, or at least that's kind of how they're monetizing primarily. Google is not a media company. They have media products, they have ad products, but at the end of the day, they're absolutely a technology company.
Okay, what about YouTube? I mean, YouTube is
well. That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. They have a portfolio of technology products. Some are media products. To your point, just before you, I was just going to say that. But then when you look at Gmail, when you look at Android, they've got so many. When you look at search, they've got so many. And is search an ad product or is search a utility? It's a little bit of both.
Well, but here, let me specifically talk about the YouTube situation, because YouTube had similar brand safety issues that Facebook had and that are concerning brands. Yet Facebook's being penalized to the tune of a 27% drop in their stock price, while YouTube continues to do extremely well at generating profitability, even though essentially they're the same thing. They're both media platforms. They both have brand safety issues. It seems like this can't go on forever. It seems and especially in this particular climate, this particular environment of social outrage, it just can't last forever, can it?
Well, there are 2 points again, and I mean, I just want to just continue to to put Google head to head with Facebook. YouTube continues to grow and to rise. They've created these incredible tools and services for makers, the Creator Studio, and created this unbelievable ecosystem that I would say is user-centric and customer-centric. I don't think Facebook is that at all. So there are fundamental strategic differences between these two companies and how they run their companies. The other thing is Google has failed so many times and they have experimented so many times. I'm not trying to boost Google versus Facebook or bash Facebook. Facebook's growth strategy is an acquisition growth strategy, as opposed to truly innovating and launching new products and being able to fail quite gloriously at them. So there are I'm answering your question. There are fundamental differences between these two companies that would certainly indicate why one seems to kind of, sputter along or is less immune to a lot of these fluctuations and volatile changes, whereas the other one just seems to almost get a free pass, in my opinion.
Well, let me take the converse position. I'm not going to disagree with you, Joe. I actually feel pretty confident that you're right here. But Holly, the converse here, my original question: can Facebook actually benefit from being more like Google in terms of the way that they present and deliver their content? I mean, could they take a page from the Google playbook and be more of a utility?
Well, that's a great question. I think if we start thinking of connecting with other people as a basic utility in life, then yes. And it's interesting because we've been having this conversation, some colleagues and I, about how valuable is your network? How valuable is what you do that you don't get? It's not monetized. You don't get a paycheck for it. You don't get to invoice someone for it. But your network is becoming more and more valuable in terms of either advancing your career or advancing your education, advancing neighborhood politics. So there is definitely a value, and in that is where it becomes a bit of a utility in being able to connect and be able to create something that is um, almost automatic in the way that we operate. But here's the caveat to that: we're not quite there yet. It's more of a minority of people who look at networking as something that, even though they can't put a dollar sign on it, still has high value. I would say in that direction, if they can help people connect, if they can help people move the needle on important things, whether it's career, family, community, politics, whatever it is, then they may have something there.
Bob, whatever Holly just said, she's absolutely right.
Well, I was going to follow up with
There you go.
you, Jonathan, because it's just like I think she is right in terms of the possibilities, but is Facebook capable of making that turn?
Well,
But
no, and the only give me 2 seconds here.
Sure.
I think, we played consultant to YouTube for years, and they would ask us how to get people to stay longer, and we said, a better ad server is not going to be your answer. Okay, it's just not. So okay, so you have to watch this video, and then we might give you a skip button or something. Do you think that'll make people hang around longer? Yeah, for a millisecond. But the problem is this: YouTube trained us to go in, look for a Flock of Seagulls song, Space Age Love Song, for example, watch it, and get out. Facebook has trained us how to use them, and it's hard to change people's behaviors when you've already trained them on how to use your website, right? Or your app or whatever, your electronic distribution. What happens is you've already trained people. So to flip-flop from social service to utility is a long flip-flop.
I find your Flock of Seagulls reference completely, crazy. I would actually prefer to search for Jonathan Sackett rap star and find that video. So I encourage all our listeners to go ahead and do that. But as we go,
the number one selling song I had on that album was quite simply The Best. So you can look that one up.
You can still get it on YouTube, folks.
Well, I think you did something right with YouTube, because what I love about YouTube is the fact that you click into you look for something, right? You find what you're looking for, and then 5, 10, 15 more things just like that pop up. And I can spend an entire evening, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, just clicking through carpool karaoke's. Oh, here's another one. Oh, here's another one. So what they've done is they've made it bite-sized chunks of addictive chocolate, right? Like, oh, here's 5 minutes of something fun, and another 5, and another 5, and then you're really fat on YouTube consumption, right? So
exactly.
If Facebook can figure out how to get us clicking through in chunks instead of, irately responding to some friend of ours who posted something we disagree with, or
right, or infinite scrolls.
But that's
right?
maybe it's the interface. When it gets right down to it,
yeah,
I find the user experience on Facebook to be almost outdated at this point. It's not doing enough thinking with me, and I'm not going to say thinking for me, because they're already trying to do that. But thinking with me, what else might I like next?
That is the core of the problem, though, with Facebook, is that it asks for your interaction in a meaningful and kind of personal way on a regular basis. I mean, the first thing that you get when you turn on to Facebook is you get that question mark, that opportunity to just write something and add something to the conversation. And I think because of that, it's always going to be more personal than something that Google's offering, which is basically like, you want to find something? Here, we got it. You want to find a video? We got it. It's
think
just
about the flip side of that, though, Bob, because if everybody's just contributing on Facebook, there's absolutely no quality control. And what YouTube does so well from a quality control point of view, and it's all based on, affinity groups. But if you like it and it's good and more people like what you like, suddenly it gets bumped to the top. And Facebook doesn't have that ability to kind of control its own quality. And it's, interestingly enough, YouTube's users are controlling who gets the most views and the most shares. And that's I think, a little bit more palpable to me than what happens on Facebook, where anybody can say anything and share anything, and there's no kind of filtering on who's crazy and who's not, and who's got poor taste and who doesn't. And that's the weird thing. Like, I've got kids who will watch stuff on YouTube that I would never in a million years watch, but there are giant communities built around. They all like the same stuff, the same poster, and they're makers, and the makers are kind of holding themselves to a higher standard than the person just writing, "I just stopped by Starbucks and got my coffee today" on Facebook.
Well, we're going to move on from talking about the Facebook Google conundrum to talking about retail, another favorite marketing conundrum. Several publications tracked the subject of the evolution of retail experience planning this past week. Pushed in part by digital players, retailers are looking to recreate more of the digital experience in store, largely using mobile devices. So, Holly, I gotta ask, does this still make sense, or do in-store experiences need to double down on things like, personal service, which is a real differentiator? Your thoughts on the move toward increasing the digital presence in store? Is it smart?
Okay, so I do have a really strong opinion about this. I've been working with a couple of retailers that have large footprints, lots of brick and mortar sites, and they also have online experiences to do the same level of purchasing and interaction. My observation so far is that the ones who are really good at the brick and mortar experience are not great online. They're just not. And so to take that online experience into the store and double down on that is a mistake in my mind. I think they have to get their online experience closer to their in-store experience. And I can think of a couple of really great in-store experiences. Like, you can think of Target is known for the in-store experience. It's they bank on the fact that you walk in to get one or two things and you come out with 20, because it's such a fun place to walk around. And if you go to their website right now, it is not a fun place to be. It's functional. It's meh at best in terms of user experience and online shopping experience. So my sense is that, yes, there's a lot of room to grow in terms of taking a digital experience into the retail store experience, but they've got to get that online experience better, at least on parity with their in-store experience, especially if they're known for that in-store experience.
But what if they're not known for an in-store experience? What if their in-store experience is broken and they're having their lunch handed to them because of the fact that online retailers are taking all their money? I mean, they're basically taking all their business. How does the brick and mortar retailer actually compete with that? Do they become more digital and try to compete directly head on with the Amazons of the world? Or do they say, hey, we've got a real problem with personal service and we need to figure this out and actually show a differentiator about why you should come into our store?
I love that question. I recently signed up for something called Stitch Fix. I'm not trying to promote them, but they do this great thing online where you have somebody who's your consultant. And it's like having somebody go to the rack and pick out clothes for you after they've interviewed you about your preferences and shown you pictures of things you like and don't like, and your style and your size and what fits well and what doesn't. And it's really personalized online experience. And it's like having a real person, but it's online and it's back and forth. And I love those experiences, because what I love around them is the trend of saying we can take the same intelligent conversation where we treat you like a person who is unique and has unique shopping needs, and give you that through an online digital experience. And then it shows up at your door and you have, free return shipping. There's a lot of perks and benefits to it. So yes, I think if boutique retailers, even larger retailers, are struggling to have a good in-store experience, look at some of these smaller upstarts that are having really great online digital experiences and starting to trend. There's more and more that are starting to pop up now. Try to figure out how you make that digital experience translate to the in-store experience, which I think the big challenge for most retailers on the brick and mortar side is going to be compensating people who can do that, who have the ability to be more human, be more interactive without being sort of unapproachable, or I'm getting paid an hourly salary. I'm not going to put that much effort into it. So I think the challenge for the retailer is going to be the cost of hiring people who can behave that intelligently and in that sort of warm, personal way.
Yeah, and if you look at it, there's been an inherent difference between starting with an e-business mentality like Zappos versus As you guys know, I was one of the partners on the Walmart deal. So with Walmart, it was funny to me because we did the in-store network too, all those screens that are in the aisles, right? And for us, it was a data play because at the end of the day, on a per store, per aisle basis, I could tell you what ads we ran, how much conversion it did at the end of each business day. Okay, but those screens, to our other clients like Johnson and Johnson, they would refer to those screens as the Walmart tax because they didn't want to pay for it. Even though the data was gold, they didn't feel the execution was strong. If you're just simply seeing, a suntan lotion ad in a bathing suit aisle,
Well,
but
here's my issue with that. I mean, it's just like I think that from a 1.0 approach to bringing the digital experience into the stores, that makes a lot of sense. But a lot of retailers are still focused on how can we deliver the things that digital does in the store. And they're thinking along the lines of the things that annoy the consumers online. They're thinking things like, well, how can we recreate the pop-up window in the store? Well, we can.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
have these phones that will pop up coupons, and that'll help to generate more sales. And they're not really thinking through what is the reason that the customer is coming into a physical location.
Well,
And
exactly. But I think what Holly said about Target was dead on because, in my opinion, Target is in-store experience is high touch, low tech. Okay, but I also haven't seen that they've figured out how to use technology and the in-store experience to enhance what they've already got going. There's an
yeah,
inherent difference between working backwards from an e-business.
I think you're right. I think you need a balance of the two. And I want to get Joe in on this because Joe, this is your bailiwick. This is right in your wheelhouse. This whole thing about bringing innovation to legacy companies. How do you feel about this conversation so far? Is it always important to help a client to figure out how to be more digital in the retail environment, or do they sometimes just have some basic operational problems that need to be solved before they can actually capitalize on the digital technology?
So yeah, I'm glad you came to me on it because it's a huge focus and passion area of mine. And I'll say two things. One is um, take Barnes and Noble and Amazon as an example. Great kind of again comparison, apples to apples. But when Barnes and Noble tried to be more like Amazon, for example, the Nook versus the Kindle, from what I know, and I stand corrected, it was a spectacular and colossal failure relative to obviously the Kindle and how integrated that is into the whole ecosystem. Instead of doing that, Barnes and Noble needs to double down on things like the cafe and the experiential component, which can be digital, but doesn't even have to be. I remember going to an Audi dealership in Piccadilly in the UK. The whole experience was digital. The whole experience. It was unbelievable, actually. And I enjoyed being inside a physical bricks and mortar environment surrounded by wall-to-wall images of this Audi that I configured and swept from the screen onto, a screen in front of me, like an iPad onto the screen. I could see the thing driving around me. It was life size. I could hear the sounds. I could kind of spin the car and do different things with it. It was an unbelievable experience. And just look today at one of the most incredible hybrid case studies, which is Tesla. Going into a Tesla, it's not even a dealership. They're cars, but there are no salespeople, and it's an inherently digital experience as well. So what I would do is I would say, let's emphasize the word experience. And certainly to your point, Bob, there's so many incredible startups out there that are bringing amazing functionality with respect to display and with respect to using Microsoft Surface technology even to be able to really draw the consumer in. It is harder than ever before to get anybody to go into a mall or into a store. But if we can offer them an experience that is so much more than just this functional limited experience of buy now, buy this, showroom, kind of buy online, get it delivered, it's got to go beyond the simple practice of buying and selling stuff. and digital clearly can play a huge role.
I have to say that you were reminding me of an article I read recently that as we become more and more digital in our habits, sitting at our own desk or looking at our own phone, as human beings, a surprising uptick in experience-based either moments in time or interactions that even though we're becoming more digital in the way that we work and communicate, people are getting more and more excited about things that are in-person experiences. And I think that alone tells me that where Joe is thinking about this is kind of dead on for the future. People are spending more and more money on concert tickets, on birthday gifts that are go and escape the room, or can we go get together and do yoga in the park together? Can I go to a training session where I bought a membership and I can do personal training on the river with a group of other people on Saturday morning? And more what people are looking for is to interact with human beings and to get out of their home, because so much of what they're doing is behind the desk or behind the phone. So I think about experience, think about how you get treated to something that is not something you can do sitting on your couch or behind your desk, but is digital. It appeals to your need to have information and some autonomy and being able to kind of see something new that you haven't seen before. And I think you're probably headed in the right direction.
Well, last but not least on our topic list, a recent study finds that while reward ads are highly desirable, and when I say highly desirable, I mean really highly desirable to consumers, marketers still largely distrust them. Marketers seem to understand what they are, but they just don't like them. They think that they're problematic. And I got to ask you guys, and I'm going to start with Jonathan, what's wrong with these ad units, and will they ever become a premium choice for advertisers?
You know, it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. I think, I talked earlier about the ego of ad agencies, and part of the deal is that I can't remember once at any agency I've ever worked at where we ever even did one. So we never came in and said, if the media buy is X, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to have people say, put an offer in there for more of a direct response thing. It had to be beautiful, and my one of my partners, Mike Hughes, if you knew Mike from
I never met
Martin.
him, but I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, and he passed away. So he was a great, wonderful guy. But I'll never forget this. We were in the pitch to win all 16 brands of Tylenol, and we ended up winning. But I was up there talking, and I said, well, you got to remember, guys, they were asking me about banner ads, which, whatever. And I said, well, you got to remember, no one is ever going to print out your banner ad and hang it on their mantle. It has to provide function. And Mike interrupted me in the meeting and said, I disagree. I want people to want to print them out and hang them on the mantle. And I said, it's just never going to happen. I think the ego of an agency to say, hey, listen, will you please watch this video and then we can get you an offer? It's too hard to sell in, because you can't sell it internally into the agency to sell it externally to the client.
Yeah, but
not
clients, customers, consumers out there are actually, they like it. They like this fact that it's just like, if I watch these 3 ads, I'm going to get some points and I'm going to be able to buy that, I don't know, that iPhone eventually.
No, you're absolutely right. But if the average consumer likes lemon flavored beer, and my brewery doesn't want to make lemon flavored beer because somebody's parent was killed by a lemon, we're never going to do it.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think that the problem with
I get no laughs out of that one.
I was on mute. I laughed hard. I laughed hard.
Okay, I was just watching. I just yesterday had a Leinenkugel summer shandy, and that's what made me think of that. So there you go.
I have no idea where I was going with this.
Once again, I've successfully disrupted a conversation. But what I'm saying is it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If it's working for the consumer, but it's not working for us, the one selling it in, we're not going to sell it in.
Well, but the problem with this for the agencies, if I can venture to put words in the mouths of every agency out there, is the fact that if I'm a consumer and I'm watching an endless stream of advertisements just to get points, am I really watching these ads? Am I really consuming them? Am I really being affected by them? And, it seems like it's ripe for all kinds of gamesmanship, Joe. I mean, this is something that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, listen, in the early days of digital, I remember there were so many of these companies that were trying to incentivize the watching of ads, which is different to what we're talking about. That was watch an ad and then get points that you can redeem for something else. I think what's happening now, and what I'm actually quite bullish on is, we're living in a time where when you look at Candy Crush and you look at Clash of Clans and Temple Run, I actually call it Temporanomics. The whole ecosystem behind these games that are now producing companies that have market caps in the hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars, and they're all based on donuts and jewels and gems and candy, and people are spending cash, a lot of cash, to be able to kind of earn these pieces of currency. Now, if you watch an ad and in exchange for that ad you get more points or more gems or more coins, that's a viable proposition. But before we get there, and look, people are constantly going to be trying to figure out ways to incentivize engagement. But there is, this is kind of Occam's law. This is almost the best practice, and this is around right now, which is if you're an app developer, you're actually using your reward ads in order to get people to download your game. So in order to incentivize somebody to kind of get their gems or their coins, the value proposition is not just to watch an ad, but to actually download and potentially even install your app. And this is a huge, huge growth best practice in terms of how many of these apps are getting started. So this stuff is real, and it's pretty valuable, and it's substantial in terms of how people are kind of building on it. So, but it's early days right now, and so I'm pretty bullish on where this is all heading.
I don't know if it's early days though, Joe. I mean, I love everything you said, but I would say having kids who are 9 and 11 and friends who have kids who are slightly older, this generation that's coming up is so attuned to this. They have so much strong acumen around, oh yeah, I know how to get my points. I know how to get my next thing. And the number of times I've even watched, yesterday I watched a 5-year-old take the phone, play a game on his dad's phone, say, Dad, can I watch this ad? I want the points. And then the dad says, yeah, whatever. He watches the ad. He goes, oh, Dad, it's for an app. Can I get that app? Yeah, go ahead. He downloads
Right.
it. Is it free? Yeah, you can get it. I watched that chain of that conversation happen. And I think that as people who are now between the ages of 5 and 20 begin to get mature, this is the space to go in. I think it's huge.
To be clear, I'm referring 1000% to the laggard marketers and their agencies. I'm absolutely not referring to consumers, because they're all over this stuff. That's why I said this is a best practice, and the people that are winning right now are the people that are using these ads.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, with that, it's time for the Ad Fail 5. But before we get to that segment of the show, I do want to take this quick opportunity to thank my guests again and allow them to each do a shameless plug, starting with Mr. Joseph Jaffe. You can find him at theinnovationscout.com. That's the home where he is now a super advisor, providing insight to brands about the many, many amazing things that startups are doing in the community. So tell us, what's going on in your world, Joe? What would you like to promote?
Yeah, and I haven't been doing too much shameless self-promotion on the show of late, but I do want to talk about something that I actually think is kind of, and could be a really nice utility for people listening, especially those that are authors. One of my clients right now, not an Innovation Scout client, but one of my own clients, is a company called Convedit. And they basically do virtual advisory boards. And they've got an unbelievable platform where in next to no time you can get a panel of real subject matter experts and have a pretty deep and functional conversation. And I actually think, as a use case, ad agencies and consultancies, I mean, right now the Ernst & Youngs and the KPMGs are all over this platform. But the plug is actually, as much as it is for them, I'm actually using the platform myself to do a bit of research for my new book. And it has been such an incredible experience for me, connecting with these brilliant minds and testing a lot of hypotheses associated with the book and some central themes, whether they resonate, building on them, coming up with case studies. And I would say if you are a thought leader out there, or an author, and you're looking to do a little bit of an innovative kind of focus group or bit of research, go check out Convedit or contact me. I'll put you in touch with with their CMO and see if we can get one of your get a panel set up for you. But for me, it's been an incredibly exciting process, and I've had a lot of fun, and I've gained so much insight for my book. And so I would want to share that with anyone else who would want to do that as well.
That's fantastic, and thank you for telling us about it. That's an awesome tool. Next up, we have Holly Noto. You can find her at xplane.com. That's X-Plane. Yes, just like the airplane. Tell us what's going on in your world, Holly. What would you like to promote?
I want to make a shameless plug for Explain in general. We are starting to really ramp up this year. And so when you need to know where your organization is going and how you'll get there, we want to be your partner. We combine strategic experience and expertise like a management consultancy with the creative power of a design studio or agency, and we get you there faster, work different, communicate visually, see the results. Explain is excited to be your partner.
Yeah, and amazing things happening at Explain, so definitely check them out and definitely work with Holly. She's an amazing individual. And last but not least, Jonathan Sackett. You can find him at allscope.com. That's the website, right? It's Allscope?
Yeah, amongst Mashburn, Sackett, Allscope, whatever. I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, tell us what's going on in your world. What would you like to promote? Jonathan?
If anybody listening gets a chance, yeah.
You're just popping in and out. So
I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you fine. Now go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I have a loose connection here. I would say, number one, I would want to promote this show as always. Bob is a good friend of mine, and I think the show is very valuable. So listen, share, do whatever you can to make sure that the word gets out about the BeanCast. Secondly is my fellow members on the show tonight. I think they're both great and smart people. So if you get a chance to do business with them, you're doing business with the right people. And third, this is a pre-excitement driven thing. Jamal Mashburn, one of our partners, Evan Greenberg, and I are launching something really, really huge, and it's going to be within the next 2 weeks. So if you do follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Sackett, it's going to be announced. This is going to be national news, and if you're following the news at all, you might be able to reverse engineer and know what I'm talking about, but I can't talk about it yet. But this is going to be huge. So keep a lookout for Jamal Mashburn, Evan Greenberg, and Jonathan Sackett. We got some big news coming.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll definitely keep my eyes peeled. And as for me, for more information about me or the show, visit thebeancast.com. There you can find a complete show archive. You can find out how to consult with me. And of course, you can find out how to advertise in the program. So check it out at thebeancast.com. And don't forget, transcribeme.com/beancast is your place to get transcription services. And they are the official transcription partner of the BeanCast. They're giving BeanCast listeners a special discount. So go check that out. And if you need transcription of this show or any show that goes forward from this point on, just check the website. I've got it posted. So remember, transcribeme.com. And now it's time for the Ad Fail 5, a rundown of the lowest moments in advertising, marketing, and public relations from the last week. First up, during an episode of Love Island in the UK, Durex advertised orgasmic gel, saying they would help you win an orgasm. In and of itself, Joe, this is not a really big deal. However, the 9 p.m. time slot it ran in was deemed inappropriate by many parents who suddenly had to explain orgasms to their children.
Well, first of all, that's what I call a reward ad. I'll take.
Bada bing.
I'll take any help. Anyone who wants to help me win orgasms, I'm an open guy. I'm a sharer. As far as 9 o'clock is concerned, you know what? If your kids are watching TV at 9 o'clock, you too deserve to win an orgasm.
Well, maybe you guys can explain to me what that is after the show.
I just don't know how you win one per se. I'm just excited about that. I'd like to reach out to the folks who made that ad.
Hey, if you get one, don't you always win? I don't know.
I thought it was like you win it and then you have it. So
That's gamification that I would subscribe to.
Well, next up, Nike lost their UK case and must stop using their Londoner campaign. It's LNDR. Because they really should have checked to see whether LNDR was someone else's trademark, Holly. I'm like looking at this going, this seems like an marketing 101. If you're going to put something into play like a hashtag or some kind of name, you figure out whether or not someone else owns the name ahead of time.
look, I mean, I actually read that and I thought to myself, what? Really? Really? And so I've decided that I have a new rule. Anytime we talk about anything like that, that's branding, hashtagging, whatever it is, I'm just going to make the round on all the late night talk show hosts that do hashtags and just make sure I'm not copying anything they're doing. And then I know I'm in the clear. And then, I can have some of the paralegals check out the rest. I can't believe they missed that.
But I heard that they flip-flopped after that and they said, you can win an orgasm, just do it. No?
Okay. Well, you know what? I think they need to hire you.
Maybe.
Now, the U.S. Department of Justice is investigating Sinclair and Tribune television groups for price fixing, Jonathan. This one is not so much funny as just, kind of just slimy, the way that this still goes on in marketing. Local television groups band together and they fix prices, and then all the little retailers who are advertising on the local stations get completely screwed.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I saw that, I said, "Oh, now we're gonna go after them?" Because come on, we've all had a hunch this was going on because the value and the viewership is going down and the prices are going up. I wonder how that happens.
Well, next up, the drive to find sexism in advertising has led to a billboard in the UK advertising bathing suits being lambasted, Joe, for featuring a woman wearing, guess what, a bathing suit. I took a look at this. I even showed it to Whitney, and I'm sitting there looking at this going, it's a bathing suit ad. What are you going to do, not show a bathing suit?
They should have replaced the billboard with a photograph, and then at least that way they could have said, if I had a photograph of you, it's something to remind me. I wouldn't spend my life just wishing.
See, again, that's the Flock of Seagulls
reference.
There you go. I want to take full credit for the Flock of Seagulls. But I would say...
I was trying so hard to find lyrics and work them in. I'm like, this doesn't even work. I don't care. I'm just going to go and,
Well, maybe it should have been Iran. I'm not sure. But otherwise, what you do is you partner the bathing suit company with the orgasm cream, with Nike, and you just say, just do it again. And now you've got a triad. That way you're only spending a third of the cost. Think about it.
No, I'm just trying to figure out how you're going to work in this last ad fail into this, because this is terrible, and I can't even begin to think how you're going to work this into that chain of all these opportunities for humor. The agency for Z Burger thought it would be a good idea to post a photo pulled from an ISIS video of about to be beheaded journalist James Foley with the copy, Holly. This one's great, right? When you say you want a burger and someone says, okay, let's hit McDonald's. Oh, yay, you get your head chopped off. This is like absolutely one of the worst things I've seen. It only lasted about an hour before the client saw it and pulled the ad.
How did it make it out the door?
Okay.
It's astounding to me how it made it out the door.
Holly, I've got the answer for this one.
Go. I want to hear your answer.
Got meat?
Oh, God.
Too soon?
Where's the beef?
That's,
you could totally get, where's the beef? The old ladies in the car.
Yes, exactly.
I got a better one, because in the Middle East, we're dealing with countries that harbor terrorism like Iraq and Iran. I ran so far away. I just ran. I ran all night and day. I couldn't get away.
You win. You hands down. You're the winner.
Dun, 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 dun.
Joe is the winner. Give him the prize. He gets the condoms.
I'm going to wrap this up now.
Right.
Wow, just do it, Joe.
New or used?
I think we've got the
You won the orgasm. You won the orgasm.
My feeling, Bob, is if people are listening at this point now, which they should be, of course, this is, they're probably not going to listen again. So
Thank
for
you.
listening
I
to
think
our last episode of the BeanCast.
You
You
know,
can
I'm
thank
already
this
gonna get.
panel, man.
I'm gonna get in trouble for any of the titles I'm thinking of for the show. There's like Joe gets the condom. There's win an orgasm. All of these show titles are gonna get me into lots of
It
trouble.
should be "and I ran" one
And
word.
I ran. Okay.
And I ran.
Well,
Yeah.
have something.
Well, I would vote for the second runner-up would be win an orgasm.
I think that would get me in trouble, and you would be fine with it. But we'll try to work with it.
We're good with that, Bob. You take the
Have
risk.
something to add to this list or just want to discuss it? Comment online. Use the hashtag AdFail5. That's pound, AdFail, and the number 5. Well, that does it for this week's show. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website at thebeancast.com and click on the subscribe link. If you're an iTunes listener, we've also provided a direct link to the iTunes Music Store, or just search for the BeanCast in the podcast directory of iTunes. And whichever podcast directory you use, when you subscribe, please leave us a review. Got a comment? Have a question? We'd love to hear from you. Just send your emails to beancast@gmail.com. Opening theme was performed by Joe Seibel. Closing theme by C. Jax. Thanks for listening. I'm Bob Norp. We'll be back again next week. Hope you'll join us then.
It's like, you know what I mean? It's like if it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. It's just like, okay, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like totally like that. It's like, I don't know, like if it's, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like kind of, it just seems like it's just like almost exactly. It's like exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly.
Cool beans.